What's going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning into the podcast. My name is Zeke.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're just two dudes from church. We are good to go. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again. We're back at it with another episode. Before we get into this, if you guys can do us a favor, you guys know what to do already. You know, I'm not gonna sit here and act like. Don't sit there and act like you don't know. Hit the like button, share, subscribe. It helps us. We greatly appreciate it. And if you didn't know, we got a TikTok.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so make sure you look us up on TikTok. We're fairly new to this, so bear with us.
Fairly.
But that being said, Gabe, I kind of want to tap into this. I was thinking about the past and thinking about there were certain moments in my life where there's certain moments in our lives where we learn you learn something in that story. And there was something that happened to me and that I learned from. And it's a quote.
Okay.
It's the best way I can put it. It's a quote. And I want to share that with the audience today. And that quote is, let it go and let it grow. Okay? And when I first heard that quote, I wasn't in the best of moods. And I was in, my college years. And I was taking public transportation to school. And it was just one of those days where, everything did not go my way. I missed my bus. It was raining that day.
Ooh.
And then when I finally get to class, I got there late. But my teacher, it was a computer class that I had. My teacher, she always started the day before the lecture. She started with a quote. And I remember when I walked in, I was drenched. And I walk in, she's in the middle of the lecture, the lights are on, the projector's on. She looked at me. She went back to what she was saying. I quietly walked to my seat, and she goes, class, we're going to get into the quote of the day. Let it go and let it grow. And basically, the gist of the quote was that you can't let, just because you're having a bad day, you can't let that determine how your day is going to continue because of that. And when she said that at first, I said, okay, I wasn't in the best of mood. I
don't want to hear it.
My books were all wet, and she just keeps going. But I felt like at one point she just stopped and was looking at me like, this is for you. And I really learned something important that day, that sometimes, in that case, it was just I was having a bad day. But sometimes there's things in our lives that we cannot let go. And what I mean by that is just that there's times in our lives where, it could be a person that did you wrong. Mm-hmm. Or it could be something that happened to you that you hold that in you, and because you hold it in you, it determines basically like your outcome. You can't move on from that situation. And when she said that, she said, I would encourage you guys to apply that in your life. If there's something, if speaking church-wise, is that sometimes we hold these things where it stops us from growing within the church because we're holding on to whatever that is. And, everybody's got their own thing. And I started to think, and, as the years go by and we mature, and it's like, wow, I really learned, like, okay, I really need to let this go. We were talking before the podcast. We were talking. I was telling you, like, I was having a rough week, like a rough week. And I don't know. I was telling my wife, listen, I need you to pray with me, help me out here. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it. I'm just feeling this. I was just feeling down. Like, I don't know how to explain it. But through that prayer, and I just kept persisting. I kept praying, and I kept doing my thing. I'm like, all right, Yahweh, I'm going to put this in your hand. I'm going to let this go. Yeah. And thankfully, I had a great day today.
Well, that's good.
It's a great day. Yeah. But it's important, man.
I mean, I think in layman's terms, when in those moments, it cripples you. So
yeah,
it
that
kinda,
for sure. Yeah.
It stops your growth in any stage of life. And I think as humans, it's one of the hardest things to do, and I think it's that it's forgive.
Yeah.
It's forgiveness. It's like you said, letting things go. Because you spoke about, sometimes we hold things in. If someone did us wrong, if someone did something wrong for you that day, it kind of changes your mood, and then that sets you up for the rest of the day. Like you said, you're just down, you're irritated, you're upset, and when in those moments of anger, it's just human nature. We don't think, we're not in our full regular mindset. So the common sense things that sometimes we do, we do irrational things because right now we're so upset, we're so emotional that we're just doing whatever comes out instead of thinking things through. So yeah, I think in any kind of moment in life where it's like what's you ever been, and I spoke about it, I think I've spoke about it before. You've been in a room, like you said, it affects you. You've been in a room with just negative-minded people or people that are down. Your mood kind of changes and fluctuates with that, because that's why it's so important with who you surround yourself with, because it can change your mood. And that's what we're talking about today. It's those moments where you do feel crippled because, like you said, you didn't know the last couple of days. You didn't know what was wrong. You were confused. You're just like, I'm not in it. I'm not in it to win it. And when you're not in it to win it, then you can't force yourself to have a great day. It's just our mind doesn't allow us sometimes to do that. So what happens in those moments, right? And the Bible talks about it a lot, and you think about it. Why would the Bible talk about something so much if it wasn't important? And that's the challenging part sometimes. We don't understand why, right? And sometimes it's not our job to understand why he says so much. He talks in the Bible, number one, talks a lot about forgiveness. He talks a lot about letting things go. He talks a lot about casting burdens unto him. Why is that? Because in our daily lives, stress is inevitable. Problems are inevitable. No matter who you are, what walk of life you're walking today, one thing we can say is all of us are going to have problems. We're all going to have downfalls. We're all going to have failures. There's not a perfect person in this world. No matter what social media life they personify, or you may think they're the happiest person, you may think, but we see it. You see it in our walks of life. We see it. And some people sometimes think, I was just having a conversation with somebody this week about it. And we were talking about it, it's like, I think all of us in our jobs would love to continue to grow, to continue to make more money, to continue to do all these things, because yes, we understand that the world right now revolves around money. I have to pay my bills. I have to make sure my family has food. I have to make sure we can pay for an apartment / house, whatever it is you're living at. Bills got to get paid. But it comes to a point where you see these people that they just want to be rich because they believe that happiness is going to come from money and from all these things. Man. And you see it now. You see all these celebrities that are committing suicide. You see all these things in the world with all these people that have everything, that looks like they have everything. They have the cars, they have the houses, they have all these things, but yet they're still lacking something. There's still something missing in them that they can't put their thumb on. And that's what happens. And then you see these celebrities, these famous people, these millionaires, these billionaires, that they end up in depression. And it becomes to start tumbling down. And even though they're putting this facade of I'm happy, I'm joyous, I got it all, I have everything you guys want, but deep down inside they're hurting, they're calling for help, they need something. And that's what happens in these moments of desperation, sometimes in these moments where we put a nice mask on, because let's be honest, one point or another, all of us have put a mask on at one point, right? We've put what they say, put your game face on. Put your game face on. Put your game face on. It's like
another type of face there.
Yeah, just make believe. You can't let them see what's really going on inside. Yeah. And that happens a lot sometimes with men. We've heard that. Men don't cry. Men don't have emotions, right? And that's the last thing, right? Because we do have emotions. We're emotional creatures, and it's not just women. True. Men are emotional creatures, and we have our own feelings and sentiments, and it's never a bad thing to share those things. It doesn't make you less of a man because of all those things. But like going back to what we were talking about is in the Bible specifically, and that's one of my favorite verses, like cast your burdens on me, cast your worries, you know, and layman's, cast your stress, right? Cast your problems, cast everything that you're going through, cast your situation. Like you said, you came into class and you were upset and you were pissed because you were soaking wet, your books were wet, you were late for school, and like your teacher, right? Let it go
and let it grow.
And let it grow, because she understood that it's hard.
You can't hold on to that.
Yeah, it's hard, because what happens when let's say someone stressed you out, someone pissed you off at work, or someone got you upset, someone said something that bothered you, right? Most of the time, tell me right or wrong, they go along with their life like nothing.
Yeah, like they didn't do anything wrong.
Because then you, I know you told me situations that you're working, they'll come back to you and they're like nothing happened, like having a conversation, and you're just like,
and see, that's the thing. It's happened before, and I guess in my age now, if I was younger, it would be it would be different. But since I'm older and I'm learning as I'm going, there's been situations where I've acted out of character, or let's say, you know, somebody did something to me or whatever the thing is. But it's the interesting thing is that and not to get really into details in this one
I got you.
scenario, but I had went home and I remember I laid down in bed and it was eating me up. I wanted to call this person at my job. I wanted to call them and say, listen, I'm sorry, man. I'm so sorry. And that was the spirit. And it was like in my chest. And I was like, yo, I can't sleep. When I see him tomorrow, I'm just gonna, and like you said, he kept he kept living his life like he did nothing wrong or whatever. And when I saw him later in the day, I saw him and I called him over. I'm like, hey, can I talk to you real quick? He's like, yeah, you know, everything all right? And I was like, listen, I want to apologize for how I acted yesterday. And he was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? It's like, listen, it's been eating me up, and I want to apologize. You know, man to man, face to face, I want to apologize. And that wasn't easy.
No.
And that's the thing. People think that forgiveness is easy. It's easier said than done. But through that forgiveness, that I asked him, hey, listen, I'm sorry I acted out of character. He said, no, I should be asking you for forgiveness for the way I acted. And it was a moment where we both kind of like, dude, I'm sorry. It's like, no, dude, I'm sorry. Yeah. And it was kind of like, we hugged it out. We hugged it out, and it was like we squashed it there, and like we went on, and I felt so good after that. I felt so good, and now it's like our relationship changed now, because I feel like now we're a little bit closer.
Yeah.
Even though most people don't understand that person, but I feel like you
have a better understanding of who he is.
I have a better understanding of who he is, and our relationship has actually gotten way better. And it's easier said than done when it says you need to go to that person, ask for forgiveness. The scriptures talk about it. The scriptures it's clear about it.
Because and again, we spoke about it. The scriptures talk about it so much because forgiveness is necessary in our lives. It's so vital. Why? Because like you just talked about, he was going on like nothing. Who was the one stressing? Who was the one holding on? It was you.
It only affects you.
Because what happens is someone is, like they say, they live rent free in your head. That's the saying, right? Yeah. And then they start to control your next steps. Why? Because all now we're thinking about is, oh, this person said this to me, it offended me, it did all these things, or they did me wrong, whatever. And now you're just thinking about it, you're harboring it. And what's that doing? Now you're going to start growing hatred. Now you're going to start growing, oh, I want to get back at them. Oh, I can't believe this. Oh, they didn't say sorry, they didn't apologize. Now what? It's starting to fester and it's starting to grow. And now that's going to control and cripple your life.
Yeah.
And as believers, that's not what he wants. Because now what are we doing? We're bringing extra stress into our lives. We're bringing problems that we don't need on top of the problems we have every single day already into our lives, because we don't know how to let it go. We don't know how to forgive. And it's so important, because without forgiveness, there is no healing. Without forgiveness, there is no growth. Because when we truly forgive, like you said, you truly went to him and said, I'm sorry. And what happened? It kind of was like,
it was a moment.
Yeah, you guys got closer because you allow that healing, you allow that freedom. When you forgive, what you do is you take your freedom back. When we forgive, when we let things go, you're taking that freedom back, because now those things don't have you captive. So now we're allowing freedom to enter into our lives, so that we can now understand and heal. Because yes, people are going to do us wrong. People are going to do us dirty. People are going to, do things. And what we're telling you here is the Bible speaks about it. We need to forgive. It's absolutely necessary. It doesn't mean you forget, but what that means is when you do forgive, healing starts to happen. Yeah. And now that doesn't happen overnight. That takes time, right? That takes effort. That takes building a relationship, because what happens with some relationships is they get strained. Certain situations come between them. Then you said relationships change, or now you start acting differently because now you're guarding yourself a little bit more because that person hurt me. But then during that forgiveness stage, that healing starts to come in, right? And again, hopefully no other situations happen that then that healing can completely go through. But it's super, super necessary. And I know there's many verses in the Bible.
I had one propped up here that I was reading earlier in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31 and 32. And it says, check this, because I like the way it ends here. Let all bitterness and wrath and anger and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another as Yahweh forgave you. Now, what if Yahweh would one day say, you transgress against the law? You know what? I'm not going to forgive you today. What if it clearly says here, as he forgave us? We sin. We are imperfect
What if
people.
He doesn't send his son to die for us? Civilization is not around. That's how big it is.
We wouldn't be here.
Yeah, that's how big it is.
And that's the thing. He's saying that just as I forgave you, so should you forgive one another.
Yeah.
And it's I can say it because I was in that moment, but it was a tough moment. It was a mental battle. But man, it ate up inside of me. Like, no, absolutely. I cannot. And the scripture, there's a verse that says, "Don't let the sun go down." And it was like I was laying in bed. It was already nighttime, and I was like, it was eating me up. Like, man, I should have just pulled him aside and said, "Listen, I'm sorry, man." Mm-hmm. And I had to wait. That stuck with me for a whole day. And even the next day, I didn't see him till later. But it was something that was the spirit of Yahweh, like just telling me, like, dude, like, don't let this day go by without like squashing this. Like how we say we got to squash the beef. Yeah. But it was like many stories in my life. It was a learning experience for me that, and this might be something that you learn the older you get. We might have a younger viewer watching this and saying like, no, this is something that, happened a couple months ago. Yeah. And I'm 32, and it was something like, wow, like I learned something from that situation. I learned something when I was in college, like how to just forgive, put it in Yahweh's hand, and just forget about it.
And it's crazy because when we talk about, someone, you versus someone in a sense, it's crazy how sometimes that problem or situation, like you said, converts in a bigger friendship or a better friendship. Because it happened to me, just me thinking about it now. We're older now, but even when I was younger, I remember kind of getting picked on in middle school or whatever. And this kid every day he would sit behind me, just just try to get under my skin, until pretty much one day I had to confront him and I had to stand up for myself. And that all happened. And then I'm telling you, the next day we were like best friends. And then he watched my back, like it's a weird thing, but sometimes like after, like you said, you confront each other, you apologize, you say, I'm sorry. Yeah. It kind of changes things, or it's like oh, we've been through it together. We get it. We understand each other now.
Yeah.
So sometimes you never know, that even in the midst of these situations, our Heavenly Father doesn't use those situations to put you in a better relationship, or a better situation, a better mentality, a better mindset. Because sometimes to grow, we have to go through tribulations. We have to go through problems. And we're going to have to learn how to do these things, because that's how we're going to learn what we're made of.
Yeah. And there's a saying that I got to credit my wife, because if she watches this, she's going to be like, I told you that. There's a saying that I first heard it from my wife. It says, there's no comfort in your growth zone, and there's no growth in your comfort zone. What does that mean? Is that sometimes when you're put in those uncomfortable situations, like we both were, it's like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? But in that whole thing, you now establish a new relationship. You build upon a friendship. And let's say in your spiritual life, there's a situation that's not allowing you to grow spiritually in church. When you confront that situation and you forgive, or you let it go, or whatever it is, and you start growing, that's what it is. It's just releasing that when you start feeling that. Now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm starting to think about this past week, and I'm like, I was really not in the best of moods, and uncomfortable, and really like, there's an analogy that I saw once where it speaks about a lobster, right? And the lobster, if you think about it, it has an exoskeleton. Like they're kind of like their skeleton is on the outside and everything else is on the inside. So lobsters don't grow to be that big, or they're not born this big. Yeah. They grow to become that big. And it was actually a rabbi who brought this analogy that says that when the lobster starts to grow, it grows from within first. And it comes to a point in time where it becomes unbearable inside of that hard casing, his exoskeleton. So what it does is it scurries under a rock, it breaks that shell and builds a bigger one. And then it comes back out, and that process keeps happening until you get a big lobster. So that goes to show you that, sometimes when you're growing, whether it's spiritually or whatever it may be, in that growth, there's going to be times where that you're going to feel uncomfortable. There's going to be times where you're going to have to sit there and say, I have to be the person to go up to this person, ask them for forgiveness. I need to let this go because of my situation. I have to put this in Yahweh's hands. And that's essentially, that's what it is letting that go, that forgiveness. And through that, there is growth. We both learned from our stories. It's like, it's a process. That's the best way I can put it. It's a process.
Once we learn that key thing, which is to forgive, which is to let go, then you will begin to start seeing growth at a different level. You're going to start seeing growth at a different rate. Because what's happening is you're starting to remove the weights, you're removing the shackles that were once holding you back from truly seeing your best and what you can offer. Because like they said, sometimes we're absolutely our worst enemy. Yeah. We're the ones that stop us from accomplishing things. We're the ones that stop us from doing things because we're in our heads too much. We second guess too much, and he's given us that power of authority. He's given us that power already. He's bestowed it upon each and one of us. So I think that's kind of what we wanted you guys to understand, that if at this moment you are in a moment of desperation, you feel crippled, like Ezekiel was feeling, you feel kind of down, you're not feeling like yourself, things are feeling off, right? Take a deep breath. Right? I learned this in exercise. They do this a lot in exercises to calm down, right? To relieve stress, and breathe in, deep breaths, and breathe out, right? Sometimes I know for some people, they what helped me was, when I would get really, really upset, I would like to take walks. Yeah. And in those walks, me looking at nature, me looking at the trees, like I'll go to like a park or something that has like trees and stuff like that. And it would kind of be more like, water, running water. It would kind of be like a serenity to me. Yeah, it calms me down because I start looking at nature and it starts putting things into perspective. How, when we look at it, life is so short. Yeah. And we see all these things happening nowadays. And for me to waste a whole day upset, to me waste a whole day stressing, all these things where I could be enjoying life. I can be cherishing life. I can be cherishing the loved ones around me. I can be cherishing situations that are in my life, the blessings that I have, instead of stressing over and getting frustrated over something that Ezekiel told me and I got offended by. You know, we don't think of it like that sometimes because we're so in the moment that, you know, that's our biggest thing in our life. When if you look about on the outside, that's kind of what it sounds like. Is like we're wasting all our energy on the wrong things, because if we can not waste our energy, but put our energy into the things, into the positivity, into the things that are going to benefit us, the things that are going to help us grow and accomplish all our goals and accomplish all the things and the petitions you guys may have, that's where we should be putting all our energy, not worrying about what they said when we know that person probably forgot what they told you, didn't know they offended you. They're living their life, and you're over here in a jail cell, putting yourself in a jail cell, and you feel you can't get out because of these things. You know, and like you said, it's easier said than done. Yeah, we agree to that, but it's not impossible. And we all have the power to change our situation. We all have the power to change how we're feeling that day. And instead of looking at it half empty, we can start looking at things half full.
And listen, I always say this, nobody's perfect, okay? Mm-hmm. And for you guys at home, forgive. All right? If you've been having that feeling like, man, I should go up to his brother. I know, you know, I did him wrong, or he did me wrong, whatever the case may be. But if you know that feeling when you feel it, forgiveness, let it go. You know, like Gabe said, if it's something that you're feeling down and it's something that maybe you don't know what it is, that you go on a walk. Sometimes for me, I do a lot of driving. While I'm driving, I have some of the most intense prayers. Pray about it. You know, go on that walk.
Music,
you know, reflect on him. Excuse me. But the point is that when you feel that stage in your life where you're starting to feel uncomfortable, know that there is growth within that. Yeah. All right. So that's why, you know, I was thinking about let it go, let it grow. It's its own thing now. You grow. We want to say thank you guys for tuning in to the podcast. Again, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. Check us out. Don't forget on TikTok. We're on TikTok now. So don't forget, guys. Continue to pray for us. We're going to continue to pray for you guys. Amen. We love you guys. And again, like I said, my name is Zeke.
And I'm Gabe.
And we're just two dudes from church.